While he's underwater, Curry better keep his eyes open. Here's your look at the McFarlane Toys Page Punchers Aquaman Series Black Manta. Considered one of Aquaman's greatest enemies, Black Manta has a singular hatred for the King of Atlantis. Black Manta has always inflicted a special kind of pain upon his arch-enemy, cementing his reputation as one of the most ruthless and driven supervillains in the DC universe. We'll get down to the details on Dome Head in a moment. First, though, one detail I'd like to cover is just how tall the figure stands. So, of course, I'm going to grab my tape measure. In this case, Black Manta is 7 inches exactly, or the figure is going to be about 18 centimeters tall. A couple of figure comparisons coming your way. Here's what the figure looks like with the Page Punchers Aquaman that we've already had a look at, who, yes, still sadly has a loose ankle. Here's what the figure also looks like with the Gold Label Edition Ocean Master, who we will be bringing back in when we look at the Page Punchers release of him. And again, I just wanted to bring back in the Endless Winter Aquaman, so you can still see he is still the shortest of the batch. As was the case with Arthur Curry, Black Manta also comes included with his own comic book. It is a different cover, sure, than the one we got from Aquaman, but if you look to the top corner, it's still Aquaman #1. The pages haven't been changed at all to flip through this page and then flip through the book behind it. They're, in fact, yes, the same issue. That's going to also be the case when we look at Ocean Master, and also carried over, too, when we look at Aqualad. There is some sense of collectability to these, because the Page Puncher comics in the past have all been the same issues. At least this time around, while we are still getting the same issues, there again is some sense of being able to collect them all, with each having their own respected covers. Moving that out of the way, the figure also comes included with, of course, a display stand. Nothing has been changed this time around. Still a black circular stand with the DC logo sizzled, branded down below, and a singular peg at the top corner that can, of course, plug into either one of Black Manta's boots. The figure also comes included with a trading card, and one thing I really like about these trading cards, I'm just going to bring back in Aquaman's here so you can see, a very bold black outline to the borders, but they've also added a very bright red font in the bottom corners of the cards. Something, though, flipped around to the back, while they do feature the characters' names at the top. Down below here, you'll actually still see their real names. Arthur Curry for Aquaman, and of course, when it comes to Black Manta, David Hyde. So I really like the look of these cards. Black Manta is also predominantly featured, like, the more length of the card, where, again, like Arthur Curry sort of being told to time out in the corner of the card. Do like the look of these cards, though. Put that to the side. The figure also comes included with a staff. Well, look at this deadly staff that he carries. The staff sort of looks like it's been made out of many things. It looks like it's sort of a sectional part that he's kind of pieced together, but it does have some additional detailing that they've added here to the red. Not to mention, look at this very sharp, very dangerous looking blade that he has on the end of it. It can be fit into his hand, although it only fits to this one side. The other hand is completely a closed-shut fist. The figure technically also does have weapons that he wields on his forearms, as he has these very long blades. If, though, looking at this, you're thinking to yourself, well, I really wish there was a way to actually remove them. You can. You can take these blades and simply just detach them as they plug in place with the holes provided on the side. Now, even just with the holes now visible, it could still look like a serviceable weapon, like something like a cannon or a gun, like he could be firing from his gauntlets. So no harm, no foul to the idea that you could actually remove these blades. It still looks to me like something he could actually use as a weapon. Like, I would just imagine that this would still be something that would shoot lasers. I like the idea that they've actually taken the time to remove these. There would be nothing worse, really, especially if you plan to store this figure away, which will be happening anytime soon. But if you did decide you want to put this guy away in a baggie, I'm sure these blades, by the softer plastic that they've used, would have clearly gotten warped. I'm glad you could actually just take them off. And I think actually for right now, when it comes to displaying Black Manta, I kind of actually like the idea of displaying him without the blade. Or what I might end up just doing is sort of have him displayed in a way that it looks like he's firing with his one arm and has the blade extended from the other. Getting, though, a closer look at the head sculpt for Black Manta. Black Manta, I don't know, many of you may already know this, is one of my favorite DC supervillains. I just always like the idea of an oversized head like this. And while this head, I think, bears a little more resemblance, like, for example, to the Legion of Doom headquarters, I don't know if I like as much the silver featured on the front of it. I prefer more Black Manta just to have a big dome of black with big, large eyes in the front. The silver works okay, though, because, again, at least the silver adds some necessary color. Because when you're looking at a figure like this, it's basically all molded black plastic. Granted, yes, there are a few little areas that obviously they would have taken the time to paint, like the belt, for example, like the hoses, for example, also look like they've been given just a little bit of paint. So I can't fault the fact that this one does have a little bit extra silver on the front of his face. I do hope at some point we get ourselves a classic Black Manta with a head even bigger than the one we get right here. Of course, the red doesn't even just stop at the helmet here. Of course, you got some nice red there detailed there on the top of his suit. You've got some red also there in the shoulder pads there as well. And even the parts that are black don't necessarily get void of detail. In fact, like if you look at his arms, for example, there's a lot of cool meshing that they've sculpted in there. So it looks like everything armored on this guy's body will protect him. He's got some little nice silver accents that they've added to the bottom of this. I don't know if this actually will propel him underwater. And he's got some nice silver also there featured on the front of his body too. Like he's a very tapered off character, very narrow here in the waist, very broad in the shoulders, and of course a very large head. The only thing about the head, though, is, again, I just wish it were a little bit bigger than what it is. Make it as big as he possibly can. He's got nice detailing also down to the sides of his legs there as well. I do really like the smoother finish that they've added. So, again, like it's a breakup of texturing. You got the mesher or the kind of basket woven texturing that they've done to the plastic here. And yet, there's these nice smoother sections that break up a lot of that. And again, like it looks like these have been probably painted in the black, even though the plastic underneath it was black anyways. Of course, when we get down to the figure's feet, on the bottoms of the figure's feet, there, of course, is the provided peg holes. So if you did want to attach this guy to a display stand, you can easily do that. Luckily, though, for this figure, unlike Arthur Curry, I don't have any real loose ankles, thank goodness. My Aquaman's already loose, I think, on this ankle. Well, we've already seen the review of that. This guy's good and tight, actually, on all the joints on him. For the articulation on Black Manta, starting first, of course, with his head sculpt, it does rotate back and forth. And while you may look at the back of that and think that you'd have to be worried about the hoses, I feel like the hoses are of a proper length that even if you bring the head down as far as it can go, there's still a lot of slack on the back of the cables. So I really like that they've added a lot of extra spacing there. So especially when it comes to moving the head, I don't really ever feel like I'm going to be pulling, stretching, or potentially breaking the plastic on those hoses. As for the figure's arms, the arms do come outward. Now, where they've actually smartly attached the shoulder pads is not rather here, but they've actually attached it here on the bicep. So when it comes to moving his arms out, there's nothing really preventing Black Manta here from being able to move his arms comfortably at 90 degrees. You can also as well take those arms and rotate them all the way around, and that's the case on both the sides. The figure does have a bicep swivel, and while, of course, obviously you're swiveling the bicep, you're also in the process going to be swiveling the shoulders. It's going to go along for the ride. The figure does have a double hinge on the elbow. The hands do rotate all the way around with a hinge back and forth. The figure has a really good ball joint up at the top of his torso, as well as a really good ball joint at the base of his abdomen as well. Legs do split out. I always like to take the time just to pause for a second so you guys can hear the ratcheted joints behind the scenes. But yeah, there is a ratcheted joint just at the base, the top of the thigh where that attaches to his lower waist. Legs go forward, the legs go back. There's a swivel obviously at the top of the thigh. The figure also does possess a double hinge on the knee. It's a little tighter on the knee here, but again, I'd rather a tighter joint than a loose joint. And again, speaking of tight joints, nice and tight joints for these ankles. You can move them back and forth this way. You, of course, can rock them back and forth this way. And the figure of Black Manta also still manages to pull off toe articulation as well, if that's a thing that's a deal breaker for you. I'd like to think that toe articulation wouldn't be a deal breaker for you, but all in all, what a great looking Black Manta. I think this also marks the first time we've gotten ourselves a Black Manta, and the real reason why I've actually got this guy shifted over here is to bring back in his page powder counterpart. Here's also what he looks like with Aquaman. Honestly, the real reason why I sought out this set in the first place, obviously I did want to get the whole set, but the main reason was the fact I wanted to get Black Manta. Black Manta is still easily one of top 10 for this guy. Is one of my favorite all-time DC supervillains. I think he turned out really nice. He's more modernized, obviously, in this case, than maybe the days of like DC, like the Challenge of the Super Friends, for example, where Black Manta, I think, was kind of more kept to more of a purple suit with a very elongated, oversized helmet. While I do think it was maybe a ridiculous design, I do hope that at some point we're going to be getting another release of Black Manta, and I'm sure at some point we will be getting one anyways, with the lead-up of Aquaman 2 hitting the silver screen. I know I may have already mentioned this point, but one of the things I really like also about Black Manta is the option that they made where you could remove the blades. So if, for example, you didn't like the idea that he had blades coming out in both his forearms, easily just detach them. They're there only attached by pegs alone. And even just to remove them, sometimes, of course, if you have a figure that has blades or anything sticking out of his form, when you remove those things, you're going to see an unsightly hole behind. But, you know, the hole almost works to your favor because, of course, as you see here in final looks, I've got the figure kind of displayed like he's shooting something out of his forearm, like an arm cannon or arm laser. I like the look of that. And that's probably going to be the way I'm going to be displaying the figure as well. This is a case where one of those characters, like a figure like Black Manta, is all black plastic. He lives up to his name, of course. Now, it's still an opportunity is made by the talented artists over at McFarlane Toys to, while still taking a figure that's really essentially all cast here in black plastic, to not go then in there with the details of the paint. He doesn't have a lot of it, but what he has at least does count. So we've got little red accents on the shoulders, for example, the forearm, the legs, for example, and even on the knees. And of course, that does pair nicely with the big, large red eyes that he has on the front of his face. I'm not crazy about the silver that he has on the front of his face. I would have rather preferred if it was just all black, but it's still from head to toe a nice looking Black Manta. Have you had the chance yet to pick up this figure? If you have, what do you guys think of it? I'm assuming if you picked him up, it's probably because you liked him, or you're just like me and you pick up everything and anything that's DC Multiverse related. But if you have picked him up, let me know what you guys think of him in the comments section. Or if you haven't picked him up, based on this review, what do you guys think of the figure? Also, as well, if you guys enjoyed this video, I want to hit with a like. If you guys are loving the content you guys are seeing, we're now, of course, 2 down on the Page Punchers Aquaman wave. We still have yet to look at Ocean Master, and we still have yet to look at Ocean Lad. Those will, of course, be coming. Aqualad. I want to call him Ocean Lad. But yeah, Ocean Master and Aqualad's review will be coming up in upcoming reviews. The key to, of course, making sure that you're not missing out on any of that is by, of course, hitting that subscribe button down below and, of course, turning on the bell notification. As, of course, as always, guys, thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next time.